Hi everyone, welcome to today's video on how to study. This is a really common question that I get asked by a lot of students across schools, across different subjects. How do I even study? Where do I begin? When, school's wrapped up for the term and you've got a pile of notes that you need to start working through, which may or may not be in some organized structure. How and where do you start? It's completely understandable that it feels really overwhelming, but hopefully today I'll give you some tips to get that started. The important thing with your study is to just recognize that it's supposed to be hard. Learning is the most effective when it is difficult, when it is slow and painful, and when there's effort involved. So if you're experiencing those types of feelings, it means you're doing something right. When learning is easy, it's superficial and often easily forgotten. As a general structure for revising, it's really important to start with a particular subject and think, what have I learned in this subject? What are the core principles of this subject? You can make a list. This could involve going through your dot points in your syllabus, breaking down certain levels of content, and maybe going through and ranking sections that you think are your strongest and sections that you think are your weakest. Then, once you have this list, it's important to prioritize. Now remember what I said before about it being hard? So we start at the very bottom of the list with the thing that you've been avoiding, with the element of your subject that you struggle with the most, with the content that you find the hardest. And that's where your revision starts. Now, that can be about writing up your notes, consolidating your notes, starting to do revision questions, things like that. There are a couple of videos that I've posted on how to organize your notes, so you can check those out as well. Then once you've organized your notes and you've done a little bit of revision, it's important to put that aside and then start working on retrieval. You are not engaging the mechanisms in your brain to develop memories from working to short-term to long-term if you are constantly reading and reading and reading. So it's important to have a session of study, start revising all your content, then put it away. Have a break, go get a snack, catch up with some friends, maybe watch a television show. Then come back to your study and think, right, what can I retrieve? It is this process of retrieval that is really important that you need to be working on with your study patterns, and make sure that you allocate in your plan time for retrieval. Retrieval can take the form of many things. You can do flashcards with a friend, you can go for a walk and see how much content you can recall, you can play matching games with quotes and techniques. There are so many different games out there that you can play, and all you need to do is just have a quick Google search to find some really wonderful things that might work for you. But really, the best way to retrieve your knowledge in a particular circumstance is to test. Something you need to keep in mind when developing good retrieval practice is that you're retrieving knowledge and skills, not just rereading. So going over your notes is not an effective way of retrieving. A lot of students love to sit there with their notes, rereading, underlining, highlighting because it feels good, and it's highly ineffective. Once you have your notes done, you read them, you put them away, and you work on retrieval. Another great way you can work on your retrieval practice is by testing. Now, I know you're going to say, oh, but practice tests are the devil. No, not really. It's the best way to prepare for your exam. So get your hands on as many practice questions and as many practice tests as possible. It's really, really important that you allow big chunks of time to complete exam-style questions. If possible, for some of those big exams, like ancient history as an example, that go for a couple of hours, it's really important that at least once in your study routine you allow a significant amount of time to complete an entire paper. Yes, it's important to work on completing small chunks and small essays. You could do a quick 45 minutes for English here and there, but it's also really important to experience that full exam. A lot of you really struggle with your time management, and developing those skills in constantly watching the clock as you're writing is going to be really helpful. Another important thing with your study is to make sure that you space it out. Sitting down in front of your laptop with your notes for about 4 or 5 hours straight is not helpful. It exhausts your brain. It overloads your working in short-term memory. So it's really important that you spend a small amount of time with the information, have a break, and then work on retrieval. Developing those patterns is going to be really helpful in cementing that information in your brain. Establish a schedule, be realistic with timing, and stick to it. Another thing that research has shown that to be really, really helpful with study is commencing a process of what we call interleaving. Now, a lot of students think that this means, okay, I do maths, English, science, history, and I keep rotating between the subjects. No, this means that you have a day or a section of time dedicated to one particular subject, and then you alternate between different problems within that subject. So what's really helpful is if you've started with the tricky stuff, you could interleave with problems that test the things that you are more confident in as well. Again, don't preference these problems just because it makes you feel good. You really need to have that struggle when it comes to study. Lastly, it's really important to engage in a bit of reflection with your study. After you've done 1 or 2 sessions, maybe take a moment to just step back and be reflective and think, is what I'm doing helpful? And how can you problem solve particular issues that you're having? Are you getting distracted? Maybe you need to put away the device and just focus on handwriting your notes. Are you even just looking out the window? Perhaps you need to change your study space. Is the study space that you have, noisy and busy? Again, maybe you need to think about where you're doing your study and how you are doing your study. Look, self-discipline is really important when it comes to study and revision, and I do have a video on, procrastination and finding the motivation. Check it out if you want. Spoiler alert, the answer is there is no answer. You just have to get it done. I just want to have a quick chat about something that really does slow down study and effective study and revision in this time, and that's a fear of failure. A lot of you aren't used to struggle when it comes to learning, and a lot of you really shy away from it. I think it's really important that you understand how important that struggle is in developing those schemas, in developing that long-term memory, and developing, robust problem-solving skills that you need for the HSC. Worrying and avoiding study is going to be detrimental to you. You only have a small amount of time before the trial, and so it is absolutely vital that you use that. That is time that you are not going to get back. Netflix will always be there. Failure is an essential experience on the path to mastery, so it's super important that you embrace that difficulty, embrace that challenge. Keep sitting with that challenge. Keep testing those difficult problems that you don't like, that you struggle with. And most importantly, reach out for help. Is there a friend that has mastered those particular style of equations? Is there someone who writes really good introductions? I know you girls don't like to share what you're doing, but it's so important during this time that you're sharing and helping each other and supporting one another. So those are my tips on how to study. Really, it's about you. You can take this time and use it effectively, or you cannot. It's your choice. Good luck with the revision. Reach out to your teachers if you need any help, and persevere.